News Extra time at KNEB 744, brought to you by Gehring Civic Center. Here's Kevin Mooney.
Thank you, Dennis, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to kind of act like Dennis today. Usually I was talking with Jim Shields about all those things with gardening and all that kind of stuff, and we have Amy Seiler here today with the Nebraska Forestry Service. She's a community forestry specialist, and many of you are probably fighting some issues with gardens and trees, especially this summer, due to all the heat. Am I right?
You are right. We're starting to see a lot of plants be very stressed out.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, just explain before we get into this what your job is with community forest, with the Nebraska Forest Service and the area you serve and that type of thing.
Okay, perfect. Well, it's a new position created by the Nebraska Forest Service, the Community Forestry Specialist. There's two of them in Nebraska. There's one on the eastern half, and I'm the western half, which my territory is Kearney West.
Kearney West.
Isn't that funny?
That's pretty funny. So you do a lot of traveling, do you?
I do a lot of traveling. I've seen some amazing communities in Nebraska that I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to visit, and it just has emphasized to me once again what a great state we live in and how proactive people are and interested are in trees in their communities.
All right. Like we said, a lot of drought this year, and many people are probably struggling with the trees. And they really should be doing some things to help their trees out. And when you list some of these things, I mean, I have a drip system at my house. Maybe I'm even with the drip system not doing enough with my trees.
Well, you know what? You just asked a great question, because a lot of us do think that we're probably taking care of our trees sufficiently. But I just did a little research, and we've had about 17 days of 100 plus degree heat. And even with the best systems, those trees are extremely stressed, and we need to make sure we're checking the soil moisture levels. And the easiest way to do that, Kevin, is just get a screwdriver and take it out. And if you can easily stick it in the ground, you probably don't need to water your tree. But if it's hard to poke that down in, it's time to get some water on that tree. And when we water our trees, we don't just take the hose out and set it on the trunk and leave it lay for about 10 minutes. Especially with our larger mature trees, we really need to go out, and it's going to take us at least an hour, if not several hours, to do a proper watering of these trees. So you take it out, you set your hose on a little trickle around the drip line of the tree, which is actually, you can figure where the drip line is from how far the branches extend out from the trunk of the tree. That would be that drip line, and you want to have water in that zone. So it could be out 15 feet from the trunk of the tree that you're applying moisture. And actually that's the area where those little feeder roots are really absorbing the moisture most efficiently. So that's where we want to be applying that water. And it's a long process, but I think you'll find your trees will show indications of appreciating that, because they'll have more luster in their leaves. They won't be kind of showing that droopy appearance, and some trees are even yellowing and starting to go dormant because this is so stressful out here. I just checked. We've had, let's see here, 4.32 inches of precip since January,
horrible.
And really
it's almost since September of last year when the rain stopped last summer. It stopped for good.
Yes, and I was noticing we should be at around 10 inches. So our trees are thirsty, especially in those rural areas where maybe they don't have an underground sprinkler system. Those trees are so valuable out there that, for windbreaks and for shade for their homes, we have got to get those watered and make sure that they continue to be healthy. Otherwise, they're probably going to start to go downhill, and we certainly don't want that.
Yeah, okay. So that means maybe just a drip. Obviously, my drip system isn't enough, so I got to do a little more work on that situation.
Your trees, I'm thinking, are they about 7 years old in your yard?
Pretty
Okay.
close when you designed our yard and all that kind of stuff.
Probably what you might want to do is add a couple more, if your trees are on a drip system, add a couple more emitters. And you also need to know what kind of soil you have. If you have a heavier soil, which would be south of the river and Gehring, that you would benefit. You want to make sure that you do a test before you add more water, because that heavier soil will hold that moisture longer. If you're in a sandy soil, kind of like in the Westmore area, or if you're in a rocky soil over by the college, you're probably going to need to water a little bit more often because that water moves through the soil more quickly. So it might be better if in a sandy soil you might water 3 times a week. What we're wanting to do is apply about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water per week on those trees.
Okay. You have some other things people maybe should think about this, and we did when we put our yard in, native and adapted plants. It really keeps your water bill down immensely. I mean, we're going to have to do some more watering with our trees, but the native plants, they flourish even in this drought situation.
You are exactly right, and your yard is actually a perfect example. The best thing to do is use native or adapted because they have proven that they can handle these rugged conditions year after year. And what we typically see is these plants are used to a lot of rain in the spring and they get deeply rooted, and then when that water shuts off in midsummer, they're able to handle that better because those roots are so deeply established into the soil. Some introduced plants, they're pretty shallow rooted and they just cannot handle what we've got out here.
Right. So really be thinking about that. You can get some, you can get some guidelines from, I'm sure, the extension people. They can maybe call you. Just a lot of different people. You can get some guidelines on what you can plant that doesn't require a lot of water once spring is done.
Exactly.
And we also want to talk about Retree Nebraska's 12 for 2012. What is this?
Well, you were just talking about using native and adapted species.
Right.
The Nebraska Forest Service has an initiative to encourage more tree planting in the state of Nebraska. And so each year they come up and they add to this list of, last year it was like 11 for 2011. These are the best selections of trees for Nebraska as far as drought tolerance, maybe tolerant to our soils, and there are some fantastic trees on this list. And actually our local nurseries are really going to be promoting these trees in the upcoming weeks. They have a big event in the fall called Retree Week, and it's a really big push to incorporate a lot of these trees into our landscapes. And what that would be, some of the great trees for, especially out west, are northern catalpa, Kentucky coffee tree. Some of the new hybrid elms are really proving to be quite hardy, and they're Dutch elm resistant. Bur oak, of course, is fantastic, and that is native to our area. And then an introduced tree that seems to be doing really, really well is English oak as well. And of course, you can go with your wonderful, and it's not on this list, but if you're talking drought tolerant trees, hackberry is another excellent drought tolerant tree, and even some of the lindens will tolerate being a little thirsty here and there.
Yeah, we have my favorite tree in our yard is the Kentucky coffee trees. They are awesome when they get going. Takes them a little long to get moving. Doesn't late May, early June. You're wondering, are you guys gonna,
exactly.
come together this summer? But once they do, they're fantastic. So. They really are. They're great. So those are just some of the things you really need to look at as far as trees go. And then the other thing we wanted to talk about before we run out of time here is the fire situation. And maybe people thinking in some of the rural areas, the wildcats, folks up around the monument, what would happen if we had a wildfire that was coming close to your house, and are you landscaped to save your house, right?
Exactly. One of the programs the Forest Service has is Living with Fire, and just fire management and fire prevention. And you really need to take a look at your property and see if there are a lot of fuel loads on your property that could really increase your fire risk. And so the Forest Service has some great information on their website, and they do have some excellent information available in like a brochure form. And if people are curious, they can always call their district foresters. Doak Nickerson is our district forester. And if you are south of Scottsbluff County or into Morrill County, Rachel Allison would be the district forester for those areas. They're both extremely knowledgeable, and they could help you put together a fire management plan that would be very beneficial for your properties, and would probably save you a lot of heartache down the road if we were to have an incident of fire out here.
Yeah, and then I guess the biggest situation is not to have a lot of brush around your house and that type of thing. Make sure it's just basically grasses, right?
Grasses, tall grasses still are
a problem.
They're quite a bit of fuel. So I'm not an expert on any of this. That's the district foresters would be better. But you also want to make sure that the plants you have aren't producing a lot of oils, and like junipers have more oils in them. Some of those types of things. Those things you need to be very aware of, and you need to kind of have a plan of what you would do in the event of a fire as well. And like for me, I have shake shingles on my roof. That is not a good idea. Yeah, and I live fairly close to the monument, so that you need to start thinking about those types of things. Make some changes in your landscape so that you have the best chance of coming out on the good side of a fire.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Some very good things for people to think about during this incredible year of drought and fire. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.